So quadratic formula. Let's get this written up on the board, and I'll show you where it comes from as well. I use completing the square to show or prove the quadratic formula. So if ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, if it's in standard form, if I have 0 on one side of my equation, given any general quadratic equation that's equal to 0, then x equals opposite b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, all over 2a. That's the equation.
Why is there a 4?
I will show you. I will show you exactly where this comes from by completing the square in just a second. Opposite of b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. For the quadratic formula. So, a question was, why is that the formula? To derive or prove the quadratic formula, we're going to actually use the process called completing the square. Let's complete the square using that previous method that we've learned to show where the quadratic formula comes from. Why is this the formula? Why is there a 4 here, for example, like mine? Right, let's get started. I'm going to divide everything by a to get rid of that leading coefficient. I'm going to complete the square for any general quadratic formula, because that will give me a way to solve any equation using the quadratic formula. It's going to look a little bit messy, but this is how it's done. All right, complete the square. The middle number is b over a. Let's complete the square using that ratio. What number should be behind my hand? We need half of this value squared. What's half of b over a? How do you cut something in half?
8.5.
Okay, well, this would be in terms of a and b, Trey. Come on. Divide by 2. So wouldn't half of b over a be b over 2a?
Yeah.
I take half of the middle number, which is b over 2a, square. To square b over 2a, I square the top and the bottom. 2a times 2a. What's 2a times another 2a? 2 times 2 is 4. A times a is a squared. So that's probably why there's a 4 right here. 4a squared. This is what I'm going to add to each side. After I move the c over a to the right. I move the c over a over to the right to get it out of the way, so that I can add half the b value squared, which is given as b squared over 4a squared to each side. Now let's factor. I'm going to factor this expression as x plus b over 2a squared. I'm not going to ask you to memorize it.
Okay.
I just want to show you where this comes from. All right?
I was gonna say.
So all I want you to know is this. But I want you to see that this isn't just a magical formula pulled out of nowhere. It has context in solving by completing this form.
So is A, B, C supposed to?
They're just the numbers from the equation, yes. Okay. I need to subtract these two ratios. How do I subtract fractions? What do I have to have first? Common denominator. This has 4a squared in the denominator. This has just a. So I need to multiply this other fraction by 4a to put the 4a squared in that denominator. So this would be b squared minus 4ac, 4a times c, all over 4a. We start to see where some of this is coming from when I compare it back to the quadratic formula over here. I think we're getting a little bit closer to what I'm trying to solve. Let's solve for x. How do you get rid of squaring something? Square root. Root the top and bottom of b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. So when I square the square root, that's gone. When I square root the top and bottom, b squared minus 4ac is much tougher to square root, so I'll just leave it as the square root of b squared minus 4ac. What's the square root of 4?
2.
What's the square root of a squared?
A.
Square root top and bottom, and I simplify the radical of 4a squared. One last thing to solve for x. How do I get x by itself? I need to get rid of adding b over 2a. So what do I subtract? The whole thing. I subtract b over 2a. Since those have like denominators, I can combine them for my final formula. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2. Yes, really messy. Something I will never make you do on your own. But I do want to show you that this has context. It has meaning, right? I'm just not pulling this formula out of nowhere. I've gotten to a point where I can use completing the square to solve any quadratic formula. Yeah. I completed the square on a general quadratic equation. For any quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. By solving for x using completing the square tray, I got a formula that I can use to solve any quadratic equation I want. That's the whole point. Okay, so let's see it in context. You guys have a calculator out?
Yeah. I'm not even done writing.
Let's look at an equation and use the quadratic formula. All right, so let's solve using the quadratic formula.
Yeah.
This is where I want you to kind of work with me here, because let's use that equation to solve the quadratic. Three x squared plus 11x minus 20 equals 0. It's in standard form. Is it equal to 0? So what are the a, b, and c values? Give me the three numbers from the equation. A is what? 3. B is 11, and c will be what, Trent? 20. Negative 20, but I see what you're saying, right? You're just pulling the three numbers. Now let's get this set up using quadratic formula. Opposite of b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2. So x equals opposite of b, negative b. Our b value is 11. So what's the opposite of b?
Negative 11.
Negative 11. Okay. Plus or minus. Make a big radical because we're going to put a lot underneath that square root. We're going to start with 11 squared. What is 11 squared? B squared, 11 squared.
121.
Thank you. 121. B squared is 11 squared, or 121. Minus 4 times A and C. We're just writing it all out, and now we're going to simplify it. 4 times A and C, so 4 times 3 and negative 20.
Can we just like times that before we put it in?
I'd like to set it all up first, and then we're going to make this a lot simplified using the calculator now. 2A, so 2 times 3, which is we got to get it set up, because if I don't get it set up correctly, how am I going to get the right answer? Let's at least put it together, and then we can start simplifying. That looks really messy, but let's make our lives a lot easier. Could everyone right now grab a calculator and type everything that's underneath the root into your calculator? I want to know what 121 minus 4 times 3 times negative 20 is. Type it in exactly like that. Yep. We're going to have to fix that. Did you do 121 minus 4 times 3 times negative 20? This has to be the minus key, Allie. This has to be the negative key to calculate. So make sure you're using the right. Don't use the square root. Just type everything that's underneath.
Oh.
See what you get. 361.
I got the same thing, Stephen.
61.
My head hurts.
What are we getting, guys? What number?
Keep on forgetting it.
361. Did anybody not get 361? $362. I think it's supposed to be 361.
361.
Let me try on Desmos here. 121 minus 4 times 3 times negative 20 looks like 361.
So glad I can see. Is it 121 times negative 4?
Nope, minus 1.
Okay, I'm so confused.
B squared minus 4AC. So 121 minus 4 times 3 and negative 20. I typed that exactly like it reads, or is shown here, into a calculator, and it gave me 361. Okay.
Imagine going to college and just like having to read a blackboard full of this stuff.
Gosh. What happens? 6. Okay, now we're down to here. So everyone with their calculator, type in the square root of 361.
Easy math, 725,000.
The operation says, what is the square root of 61? Got to do that next version.
19.
19. Parker say 19. You getting that?
Yeah.
Very few agree here. 19. Root of 361.
19.
19. Shirley says 19. Anybody not getting 19? Kind of feel like 19 might be right here.
At 19.0.
Okay, same thing.
I got 19.00.
I got 19.
We're down to here now. Looking a lot simpler. Negative 11 plus or minus 19 all over 6. How many answers are actually in that expression? How many answers am I trying to solve for? 2. Why would there be 2 answers?
Plus or minus?
Plus or minus. So let's actually take the plus or minus. What is negative 11 plus 19 over 6? What is negative 11 minus 19 by 6.
1.3 repeated.
I think
So
it's
30 divided by 5.
Negative 11 plus 19 is actually an 8. Is that right?
Yeah.
What does 8/6 reduce down to?
1 1/3.
1 1/3 or 4/3, right? 4/3 is one answer. Negative 11 minus 19, what is that?
That's negative 30.
Negative 30, thank you. When I divide by 6,
5.
positive or negative though, please?
Negative
5.
I'm moving.
There's your final answer.
Easy math, right math.
There it
That
is.
should be it. Our answers are 4/3 and negative 5. We set it up. We started simplifying. I took the square root, brought down negative 11 plus or minus 19 over 6 to break apart and find the answer.
You think they'll ever come up with a similar way to do this?
Nope.
I'm a little blind.
I'll make it happen, Steven.
There's a quadratic formula, there's a cubic formula, but there will never be anything else other than that. There's no like fourth degree formula, like x to the fourth.
But like I'm saying, like, will they ever make that like the actual formula?
Can't,
Why not?
because this is as simplified as you can make it. That's the whole point of me doing this here. That's as simplified as I can make it.
You underestimate my power.
Okay. You have had it. Try one more. Yeah. Let's do this one. X squared minus 6x minus 19 is 0. What's A, B, and C?
1, 6, 1, negative 6, negative 9.
Yeah, Luke's got it for me there. A equals 1, because there's a 1x squared. B equals negative 6, and C is negative 19. We got that. The great thing about quadratic formula is it will solve any equation no matter what. So I'm going to solve the next one just as exactly as I solved the first one. I don't have to know how to factor. I don't have to know how to complete the square. I just need to know how to plug numbers into a formula and simplify.
Sasha's supposed to be a tornado.
What's the opposite of B? B is negative 6. This starts with the opposite of B.
So 6.
So 6. Okay, the opposite of negative 6 is 6. We got that. Plus or minus. What is B squared if B is negative 6? What is negative 6 squared?
Or 36.
Good, thank you, Trey. Positive 36, not negative 36. We'll always get that. Minus 4 times A and C. Minus 4 times 1 and negative 19. All divided by whatever 2 times A is. 2 times 1 is 2. Everyone right now, go to your calculator and type in 36 minus 4 times 1 times negative 19. 36 minus 4 times 1 and negative 19. I'm here at 112.
Yeah.
Do I have a second for that?
Yeah, 112.
112 we're all getting?
Yeah.
All right, so this looks really messy right now, but watch what we're going to do. I'm going to take everything I've got inside that radical, 36 minus 4 and 1 and negative 19, and just call it 112. Two A is 2 times 1. So 2 times 1 is just 2. Okay, can everyone right now on their calculator type in the square root of 112?
10.5.
Oh, shoot. What's really great about when I did the square root of 361?
10.58.
It's a perfect square. Is 112 a perfect square? No. So we need to simplify the square root of 112 by factoring perfect squares. Give me a perfect square that's going to divide into 112.
10 and something.
10's not a perfect square. Let's pick like 4, or 9, or 16, or 25, or 36.
Well, 25.
1, 2.
4 what? How many times is 4?
7.
4 times 7 is not 112.
16. 16 and 7.
So you're saying 16
And 7.
and 7?
I said, I meant to say like 4.
Oh, because of the 16. Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I meant.
What's the square to 16 then? That's the 4. Can the square to 7 simplify?
No.
So we're done. I'm going to replace the square root of 112 with 4 root 7. Because I'm going to have radical solutions, this isn't going to simplify quite as well as it did over here. I'm not going to get out like a good number like -5 4/3. I'm going to have radical answers. Let's look at what we've got so far. 6, 4 root 7, and 2. Can I divide any value for each of those? To simplify it a little bit? Divide everything by what? 2. 6, 4, and 2 are all even, so can't I divide everything by 2?
You can't divide 7.
When it's 4 root 7s, I take 4 root 7s and I divide it by 2, isn't it just 2 root 7s?
Sure.
6 divided by 2 is 3. 4 root 7 divided by 2 is 2 root 7. 2 divided by 2 is just 1, so divided by 1 is not going to change anything. Here's your final answer. 3 plus or minus 2 radical something. It'll give you the decimal version of that probably.
Can I go use the phone?
3 plus 2 root 7 is not going to be a full number, right? Grab your packet, please. You're going to do one more. Solve one more, and you're out of here. Page 5 should be where we're at right now.
I have to solve a full problem.
How many are there?
Well, there's 16 on here, and you're going to do number 1.
How do you like my videos? I love it.
Like, we could just do the evens. I think all these problems take forever to solve.
But guess what? The joy of the quadratic formula, Shaylee, is that it's the same formula to solve all of them now. It's just plug and chug.
Every page is different.
Okay, guys, number 1 is up on the board. You solve number 1 and you are out the door. Number 1 is on the screen here. I would like you to solve using the quadratic formula of b squared plus 2b minus 8 equals 0. What's a, b, and c? A is 1, b is -2. Watch the sign there. I'm sorry, positive 2, I'm going to say it. Because the c is the negative. Gus was right, I was wrong. B is 2, C is negative. I saw the negative, I got it mixed around in my head. If you plug those 3 numbers into this formula and you simplify, your answer should be in red. When you're done, check your work. If it's good, see you Monday. We'll come back and I'm sure we'll need a little refresher on Monday because it's a 3-day weekend, right? Sleep in tomorrow. Don't forget to not set your alarm tonight.
I can't sleep.